Hi there. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening to what I'm about to say. This, believe it or not, maybe you'll believe this, it's my first ever video that I've ever done. So I hope you enjoy it. I'll keep it very brief and I'm sure it'll be one of many more to come. And what I'm going to talk about today is really about my experience of relocating overseas, both as a child and an adult. When I was 13 years old, I moved from England with my family to Australia. Now at the time, it was something that I was very excited about for those who were in the UK and Australia. Home and away neighbours was just the bee's knees. And all my friends were really jealous that I was going to Australia. Unfortunately, I wasn't going to Summer Bay or Erinsborough, fictitious places based on those two shows. I was going to Adelaide. And I wouldn't say I got a rude awakening as such, but definitely didn't, it wasn't the Australian dream. And this was back in the early 90s, so there was no internet. Very little information other than TV shows. And I found it quite difficult, not because of that, but because I was a teenager and very hard to settle in. And although in time, towards my late teens, I made friends and settled into the country and things like that, and went to university and started work, there was always a sense of identity and who I am and how important identity is and where you come from. And I always felt, probably from my teenage years onwards, I didn't have an identity. What the experience of moving from England to Australia did is somewhere in my subconscious made me think, wouldn't it be good to go back to England to live for a bit? And a few things happened in my life which sort of transpired to me wanting to go back. And in my mid-20s, I went, I'm going to do it. It was based off a discussion. I was working in a job that I hated, and I was talking to a temp worker who was from Croydon, I think, just outside London. The details weren't important. And she said, "Yeah, you should just go back to London and just do it." And I remember sitting with a friend, and we were driving from Sydney, where I was living at the time in Australia, to Newcastle, which is a town 2 hours north. And he turned around in the car and said, when are you gonna go? And at that point I'd been talking about it for 2 months. And I just went, 4th of August. I'm going 4th of August. Completely made it up. So I moved back. No fixed term sort of plan there. Got a job. And going back to identity, I realised going back to England that I wasn't really English. And I wasn't actually really Australian. And this might sound very strange. And although I enjoyed my time there, I felt I've got two identities. I felt like I was English and Australian. I could switch between the two depending on who I was talking to, depending on the context of discussion, which was really weird. I moved back to Australia, where I am right now. This is in my house in Melbourne, Australia. And that was probably 5 or 6 years after living in London, so I'm in my early 30s now. And what I've come to realise, living here now, I'm married, I've bought a house, here, probably for the short to medium term at least. I mean, life's can go in many different ways, so who knows what it'll be, is that it doesn't really matter where you're from. The older I get, it's not that important to realise. And I think for anybody who's struggling with identity and thinking to themselves, I'm in a foreign country, where am I from? I've left my home, all that kind of thing. It doesn't really matter, is what I'm trying to say. I've moved from England to Australia and vice versa. They're fairly culturally aligned. There are some differences, and language is obviously a common theme in terms they both speak English. But I've learned as it's more around who you associate with and not to worry about where you're from, really. Don't let that be a precursor to stopping you feeling anxious or things like that. So I'm gonna pause it now. Thank you for listening. Any feedback, please just drop some comments. More than welcome to taking your feedback. And I hope you got something out of this. I sure did. Until next time, ciao.